political violence of any kind is wrong. And Charlie Kirk is a violent, racist, hateful, Nazi pedophile supporter. Great. Now that we got those very simple, easy, and completely capable of having two thoughts at the same time out of the way, let's talk about what happened. So, because of the massive censorship campaign by the people at TikTok and the big tech terrorists, they are trying to censor us from being able to talk about this. So, yet again, I have to, now that I have mentioned the name of the person I'm talking about, I have to do a whole frickin' rigmarole to make up fake names. So, we'll call him Harley Dirk from now on, okay? So, let's see if this gets past the TikTok censorship machine. You might be watching it, and then, boom, I'm gone, because that's what these fascists are doing. We're not allowed to tell the truth. The only truth that is allowed is the wrong speak, which is what they do, which is the doublethink bullshit. So, let's get down to it. Right now, there is the Reich wing wanting to make this their Reichstag fire as an opportunity to get more power and make being anyone different from them or thinking different from them completely illegal. Again, this is my opinion. This stream is purely for educational purposes. It is your job to do your own research. So, they're trying to claim that the left are the ones that are violent. So, we'll investigate that a little bit. We'll also investigate some of the things that Harley Dirk has said. Now, it's a little bit difficult because I got some screenshots here. We're going to kind of be bouncing off all over the place. And also, I'm going to have to change what I say based on the TikTok censorship machine yet again. So let's start with what the Reich wing is saying, because this is just a cover for them to use more violence. And right now, by the way, the DNC is on lockdown because of massive bomb threats. Same with historical black college universities. I cannot recall the name at the time, but they're also receiving multiple bomb threats. Again, this is purely for educational purposes. You should do your own research. These are only my opinions. So, let's talk about how the threats from the left that are completely made up and what the actual threats are from on the right that they have said from the horse's mouth. Now, they're trying to spin off this whole version of the left as being this violent, evil people that are ready to take over the world at any moment. And then in the same friggin' sentence, they'll call us weak little snowflakes that are too busy doing underwater basket weaving with our massive shitty degree. How are these things possible? It's probably because they actually don't have any values. But hey, neither did Harley Dirk, because he was the one who said that some people should, in order for us to have a Second Amendment, he thought it would be you. He never thought it would be himself. Again, this stream is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. Now, let's look at some facts. Domestic extremist-related killings in the U.S. by perpetrator affiliation between the years of 2013 to 2022. 444 total deaths. Right-wing extremists are responsible for the great majority of extremist-related murders over the last decade. Right-wing extremism, all movements, are 75%. I wish I could show you the pie chart. Actually, maybe I can. Let me see. Is this a green screen? Let's see it. Oh, can I do this? Oh, I can do this. Oh, but it's not the right format. It's too... Well, anyways. I'm just going to quote Bain. You will simply have to imagine the pie chart. Again, this thread is for educational purposes. These are my opinions. It's up to you to do your own research. Right-wing extremism of all movements is related for 75% of all deaths. Left-wing extremism, including anarchists and black nationalists, are only 4%. Domestic Islamist extremism is 20%. Other/miscellaneous is only 1%. So, yet again, we have 3/4 of domestic terrorism being aligned with right-wing terrorists. Again, this thread is for educational purposes. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. How did we get to 3/4 of the MAGA population wanting people in this country? Well, I am so glad you asked, because I've got the receipts, motherfucker! Let's take a little stroll down memory lane, shall we? So, if you recall, Trump recently pulled the Secret Service protection, and he's done this for other people, pulled the Secret Service protection off of his political opponents. Wow! Such a nice thing for him to do. Not like there's an atmosphere of violence or anything around the world. But again, this is not someone that's actually caring about the issue of violence. This is someone intentionally making them feel less safe so that they do not have people handling their protection. That is the goal. That is why everything that they talk about is doublespeak bullshit. Again, this thread is for educational purposes. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. So that's just one point. And then that's about Charlie Kirk. We'll get into that later. Trump posted a picture, an AI slot picture, because of course he did, because no one on talent of his staff could actually do drawings. Unless it's an underage child, and then Trump would be all about drawing that picture. It's a picture of him with Chicago in the background and taken out of the movie Apocalypse Now. He's got the stupid cowboy hat and the aviators and the fatigues, and he says, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War." Yeah, that's someone that's absolutely looking to tone down the rhetoric. Oh, man. What an absolute monk the man is, calling for war. Yes, namaste. War and death and napalm bombings is what we will be doing today, children. So please, everybody, grab your kerosene and fill a drum. Again, this is my opinion. It is your job to do your own research. This thread is for educational purposes only. This stream is for educational purposes only. It's about Charlie Kirk. Here we are. Republican ex-candidate sentenced to 80 years in prison for shooting plot. Sounds relevant. Solomon Pena, who lost a bid for a seat in the New Mexico legislature in 2020, was found guilty in March of orchestrating the attacks against state Democrats. So this guy, just like Trump, lost an election, got butthurt, wasn't man enough to be able to take it, so did he, retreat to maybe gather his resources and find out what went wrong and become a better person and a better candidate and refine his positions on how it would support the country? No, he went out and decided to try and the other people. Thank you for wanting to co-host with me, but I'm not going to be co-hosting. I'm just going to go through the stream right now. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. So, that's yet another point. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and I have more. Let's not forget Kyle Rittenhouse, right? That guy who said his stated goal before he even left home was to go out and people, right? That was his stated goal. So he went out and started trolling around the streets with an armed AR-15 and ended up people because this is the kind of rhetoric that he grew up with. He grew up with pictures of Trump wanting to invade Chicago. And then this is actually an even more key point. Donald Trump hints at assassination of Hillary Clinton by gun rights supporters. Remember that? Remember that when he's up there and he's like, well, Hillary has some problems. We all got some problems with her, but I don't know, maybe the Second Amendment people can take care of it. Maybe they can do something about it. Remember that? Yeah. That was a clear threat with intent and with goal, and it was immediate. And that's the kind of violent rhetoric that these right-wing, red-pilled morons have grown up with. So yeah, no surprise that Kyle Rittenhouse went out and did that to a bunch of people and committed an act of terrorism. By the way, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. That's about Charlie Kirk. We'll come back to that. Okay. Here's a long, non-comprehensive list of some of the MAGA terrorists over the years. The man who targeted and killed Democratic state lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark in their home in Minnesota in June was a Trump supporter. The man charged with the attempted assassination of Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro in April was a Trump supporter. The man convicted of orchestrating a series of shootings at the homes of 4 Democratic elected officials in New Mexico in 2022 was a Trump supporter. That's the guy we just talked about. The man who tried to kidnap then Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and assaulted her husband Paul in 2022, a Trump supporter. And if you recall, well, we'll get into that. The men who wanted to Mike Pence on January 6th were Trump supporters. The man who, the son of Obama-appointed district judge Esther Salas in 2020, was a Trump supporter. The men who were convicted of trying to kidnap Michigan's Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer in 2020 were Trump supporters. The man who sent pipe bombs to the house of Obama, Biden, Hillary Clinton, and other top Democrats in 2018 was a Trump supporter. I think he also sent it to CNN, if I remember right. Which is all the more ironic that CNN is like just throating Trump's tiny mushroom cock right now. The man who killed left-wing activist Heather Heyer after driving his car into a crowd of counter-protesters in Charlottesville, which was a rally of neo-Nazis in 2017, was a Trump supporter. Again, this thread is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. Love you. So this is a non-comprehensive list. This is just the ones from it looks like the earliest is 2017 of MAGA supporters committing acts of violence and terrorism. And there's even more. Let's see. Okay, well, let's get into... it's kind of about Charlie Kirk. Okay, let's do this. So, speaking of Paul Pelosi, right, the MAGA terrorist supporter who went and tried to kidnap Paul Pelosi and then Nancy Pelosi, after that happened and Paul Pelosi was viciously attacked with a hammer by a MAGA maniac, almost died, Trump Jr. posted a so-called joke about using a hammer as a Halloween costume. Remember that? Yeah. So we need to tone down our rhetoric, but these guys are allowed to say shit like that? And the corporate media, by the way, is all in on this. Oh man, they are deep in the fascist MAGA hole right now. Because if they were to do anything else, their leaders would lose their tax breaks. And we can't have that. Clearly, guys, clearly, y'all aren't thinking of the billionaires. It's been such a hard time for them. Going from being billionaires and now they have the responsibility of being trillionaires? What? Guys, really, think about the soon-to-be trillionaires. I'm disappointed in all of you. Again, this thread is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. I can't believe the censorship is so bad that I have to say that. Like, obviously all that shit's implied, but what can you do? Let's see. Oh, well, so today, it was posted that Capitol Police are responding to an incident at the DNC. Staff are asked to remain clear of the police activity. So the DNC had a threat and had to go on lockdown and have police attend to them. Where is the outcry from the right? Where is there asking to tone down the rhetoric? Where is Donald Trump coming out and saying, the DNC, great people, they have the best leaked emails, but by the way, political violence, so wrong. It's wrong, people, it's wrong. So wrong, believe me, I'm the best at being wrong. You don't see any of that, but all the burden is on the left, because corporate media is just honing in on this absolute fascist bullshit. Again, this live stream is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. This is all Charlie Kirk related. Oh, yes. Donald Trump, after the Perry High School mass shooting, this was one day after that happened, he says, quote, "We have to get over it." This is the kind of normalization of violence. Children should never be told to get over it when they're facing death. They should be told to get over it when you have to unplug their frickin' Nintendo Switch or their Game Boy Ultra Mega Man Advance or whatever the hell these kids have these days. That's when you should tell them to get over it. But when they're getting in school, no, you don't tell children to get over that. This is the kind of normalization and violent rhetoric that we have seen from the Reich consistently, over and over and over. And there is never the kind of scrutiny and publicity that we've seen, and the suppression, by the way, of calling this kind of shit out. There has never been this kind of a campaign against that. It never has been. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. Oh, it's getting hot and I don't run the AC when I'm doing these streams. And I'm regretting it. Can you see the sweat? Can you see the sweat on my forehead? Okay, in terms of fascist rhetoric, Donald Trump called Biden a Nazi and Harris a fascist. Which, of course, Harris, a fascist? She wouldn't even break from Biden, okay? She was deep, so deep in his pocket, she had lint in her mouth, right? Calling her a fascist when Biden wouldn't even tell Merrick Garland to prosecute Trump? What a fucking joke. What a fucking joke. These people are a goddamn disaster! And then, of course, he called the entire Democratic Party a domestic extremist organization. Not forgetting that Trump recently called bankers Shylocks, which is a slur against Jewish people, which is also associated with violence throughout history. And again, not a peep. Corporate media, it was like a 16A story, and then corporate media was on to the next wag the tail story. Wag the dog. Hear what I meant, not what I said. This thread is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. And then, of course, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson at a North Carolina church meeting. Bro said this at a church. Some folks need killing. Oh, yes, we all remember those great words of Jesus. Bless thee unto me, my son. You now need to go and kill some motherfuckers. Yes, that's what Jesus was known for. Right. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. So, seriously, some folks need killing? This is what gets a pass? And again, this was like a microscopic story by comparison to everything that they're putting out there about Harley Dirk right now. Completely different scale. Did they cover this? Did corporate media cover this story? Absolutely. By about that much. And then look at what they're doing with the Charlie Kirk thing. It's, oh my God! And getting bigger by the latest bullshit tweet on Truth Dipshit Social. Again, these are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research, and this is for educational purposes only. Yes. And again, we're going back to it. Threatening. Let's not let this get lost in the hubbub. MAGA was threatening war with Chicago. They're actually threatening war. That's not even like the other guy saying some folks need killing. That is a drop in the bucket compared to threatening a massive, major city in America with millions of people with war. That is as full fascist as it gets. Fully erect fascism. That's what that was right there. And of course, Trump is a taco with a tiny mushroom dick, so he never followed through. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research, as these are my opinions. And then, of course, we have Senator Mike Lee. Is he a senator or a representative? I can't remember. Congressperson Mike Lee, when Melissa Hortman was murdered by a MAGA supporter. They tried to pin it on the left, as they always do. That's what they always try to do, is they try to pin it on the left, despite the guy voting for Trump and supporting Trump openly, vocally. Same thing with the people that tried to Trump at his own rallies. Trump supporters voted for him, vocally advocated for his policies and his words. And this is, instead of taking the violence against an actual victim of political violence in the Hortmans, Mike Lee is out here making jokes about it. Same way with Paul Pelosi. They're trying to make jokes about it. So you don't get to say the left needs to tone down the rhetoric when they're joking about that kind of shit. That's why I get a joke about Harley Dirk, because, you know, they set the rules, I'm just playing by them. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. And here's more violent rhetoric from, of course, Laura Loomer, the groomer. It's time for the Trump administration to shut down, defund, and prosecute every single leftist organization. If Harley Dirk dies from his injuries. His life cannot be in vain. We must shut these lunatic leftists down once and for all. The left is a national security threat. This is akin to someone drowning in the ocean and them being like, oh my God, we have to call all the sharks. No more sharks should ever be allowed. That's not how it works. We still have no idea who this murderer was. And here's the other funny thing, because the Trump regime went on their whole firing spree of the FBI, DHS, all these other organizations, and they pulled all the special people that were actually prosecuting these kind of crimes and investigating these kinds of crimes towards, arresting hot dog vendors in Los Angeles. Now, this killer has a good chance of getting away because all the people with expertise and knowledge and experience in going after these kind of folks, gone. And you think they're going to come back like in some TV show? They're going to be like, listen, we know you treated you bad, but we need you back on the force. I just can't do it. By the way, tell your guy in the White House I said piss off. You think it's going to be a moment like that? No, come on. These people are not going to join back in after the humiliation and disrespect that they got. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job, to do your own research. So they still have no idea who this guy is, what his motivations were, what his ideology is, and they're already calling for violence against the left. Let's see. We covered that one. Covered that one. Covered that. I'm just going to repeat these because this list is worth knowing. So this is some of the MAGA terrorists over the last few years. The man who targeted and killed Melissa Hortman, Trump supporter. The man who targeted the home of Josh Shapiro, Trump supporter. The men who wanted to hang Mike Pence on January 6th, Trump supporters. The man who targeted and killed the son of Obama-appointed District Judge Esther Salas, Trump supporter. The man who tried to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and assaulted her husband, Trump supporter. The men who are convicted trying to kidnap Democrat Gretchen Whitmer, Trump supporters. The man who sent pipe bombs to the homes of Obama and Biden was a Trump supporter. Wow, that's crazy. Wow, all these coincidences. But the problem is that fucking left. Them and their goddamn finger painting, and they're bleeding hard for animals. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. The gunman in deadly CDC shootings, this happened recently and got completely memory hold, by the way, was fixated on the COVID vaccine. The shooting in Atlanta, which killed a police officer, by the way, so much for Back the Blue, am I right? Followed the spread of false information around COVID vaccines and animosity directed at the agency. So yet again, a MAGA terrorist shot and killed a police officer. Where's all those Back the Blue people? Where are they? I don't see them. Do you see them? Are they in the room with us right now? I don't think they are. This goes back to their total bullshit. It's Back the Blue when it's convenient. That's what they do. Back the Blue when convenient is what they do. Can I rhyme further? No, I have no musical talent, so of course I cannot. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. I almost went full Goldblum there for a minute. These are my opinions, and it's your job to do your own research. So, after the MAGA terrorist murdered the Democratic state representatives, Trump said he won't waste time calling Minnesota governor after the slayings, or even the families. So what is that? What are we doing here? When we're supposed to be the tolerant left, and the MAGA terrorist Reich always has their boot on our neck? Maybe it's time we start wearing that "Don't Tread on Me" flag. Because frankly, I'm fucking sick of it. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. Matt Walsh, Brandon Johnson, who is the mayor of Chicago, if I recall, should be arrested, charged with treason, convicted, and then given the requisite requisite punishment for a capital offense. So capital offense, meaning murder, can see the death penalty. So here's Matt Walsh. When was this? This was this month. This was a week before what happened to Harley Dirk. A week before, MAGA is threatening to go to war with Chicago, and then these terrorists are now saying that Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, should be murdered. That's what they are saying. And yet, the tolerant left, with all our horrible, violent rhetoric like, free Gaza and tax the rich. Oh my God. Give everyone health care. Do you have any idea how violent that is? My God. What will you say next? End nuclear war? Oh my God, they said it. Again, these are my opinions. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. Tee-hee. Now, this was the day after Harley Dirk was shot and killed. Fox News' Jesse Waters says, we're going to avenge Harley Dirk's death. Everybody's accountable, and we're watching. The politicians, the media, and all these rats out there. This can never happen again. It ends now. This is genocidal language. When you're calling people rats, that's exactly what the Nazis did in the 30s. It's what most genocidal fascist regimes have done throughout history. Right? They've degraded people, devalued, and dehumanized them. And this guy could have been Radio Rwanda back in the day. And Jesse, for the record, that's a bad thing. You stupid, ugly fuck. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. So, as we can see, the violent right, what if Trump were to actually tell the truth? You know, what if that were a thing? He gives a speech, he's like, listen, we're up here today to confront something very bad, I have to admit. It's very bad that the violent right has been doing some bad things, very bad things. And these are not bad things with good people on both sides. No, these are bad things. Very bad things. They're doing things like killing. They're doing things like rape. They're doing things like terrorism, okay? We don't like terrorism, folks. Oh, we hate terrorism. Terrorism is so bad. It's not just bad when people on the right do it. It's not just bad when people on the left do it. Terrorism is bad. What if he did that? And what if Obama were to stop fucking around and actually speak plainly for once? Drop the fucking Harvard degree and just talk to us like you're having a beer at a bar. Just like, I gotta tell you, these motherfuckers say some pretty violent shit. Like, wow, I haven't heard that kind of shit talking since an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. And even then, they could tell him a few things about how to do it right. Again, what the fuck are we doing here where corporate media is leading us by the nose? And I realize it's very easy with mine. And even I can pull my fucking schnoz out of their grip. The fact is, the violence comes from the right. This is a terrorist base full of Nazis and fascists whose own stated goal is to obliterate people that think, look, and act different from them. That's been this entire live stream so far. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. So as you can see, that's the rhetoric from the right. Now, let's get into Harley Dirk. Political violence is terrible. And I want to tell you something. I don't know if you've seen that footage of him getting hit. It's awful. It's very bad. It looked like he was dead the moment he was shot. That's how bad it was. It was terrible. That's the thing of nightmares. And to think that we have weapons of war and people capable of doing that just on a moment's notice. And then escaping and evading authorities for, 2 days now? Going on third? And then innocent people are getting apprehended, thinking that they did it when they get released by the FBI later. Because of the FBI and Kash Patel. By the way, why do we have with Kash Patel's eyes that fucking big? You'd think he'd be able to see shit like this, you know? Every picture with him is like, he's got he's like pre-stroke Mitch McConnell. He's like,
Well, I can see right now that we got a terrorist on the loose here, and we gotta find him. That's gonna require a lot of work.
And Kash Patel just always has the constant fucking bug eyes, and he can't see shit like this. So, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. Charlie Kirk, regardless, Charlie Kirk did not deserve that. I don't think anyone deserves that unless they are the person actively committing acts in an act of violence. You know, if Harley Dirk were to have hit someone, I guess, or was mid grape of a woman, or probably knowing the MAGA right, a child, then self defense is justified. But there is no possible scenario in which what happened to him can be justified, in my opinion. I don't see it. What happened to him was brutal. It was terrifying. And again, the thought that there are people out there capable of doing this was not an easy shot, by the way. 200 yards. It's not like fucking Navy SEAL level sniper shit, but it's also not quite. It's not something that someone can just pick up and do with a fucking pea shooter from Walmart, right? So, with that said, Charlie Kirk did not deserve that, and having that happen was terrible, and we need to catch the person that did this because they need to face justice. With that said, Charlie Kirk is a vile, evil piece of shit. And we're going to get into that now. Again, these are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research, and what's the third part? I have so many thoughts running through my head trying to navigate this fucking fascism filter. Fascism filter, that's what I'm going to call it. This is for educational purposes only. There, that's the third one. So let's talk about some of Charlie Kirk's incendiary and violent rhetoric, right? Charlie Kirk says the government workers operate as worthless parasites on the American taxpayer. Here we go again. With the dehumanizing rhetoric, which the right wing is so good at doing, dehumanization of government workers who, by the way, we're now seeing there's a fucking reason you want them in charge and able to do their jobs, because then killers like this can walk free. Again, this is for educational purposes only. This is my opinions. Do your own research, guys. And, this actually goes back to the original point. Sorry, I missed this one. But there was a plaque honoring the officers of the January 6th MAGA terrorist attack. And Mike Johnson has still not put that plaque up. Again, that's normalizing the January 6th terrorism that occurred. Rufus, can you stop going to town on your paws? People are going to think there's a friggin' bear in my apartment. I can hear you from up here. I don't know if you guys can hear him, but he just is like... like, bro, chill out. You're going to bite your own paw off. And then, of course, we talked about Trump pulling Secret Service protections. Charlie Kirk. Haiti is legitimately infested with demonic voodoo that allows practitioners to do quasi-levitation stuff. Do you realize how fucking bigoted and stupid you have to say that is what comes through your mind? Talking about demonic voodoo and quasi-levitation? Like, whatever happened to them just eating pets? You guys just moved on from that once you realized it was total bullshit? You have to go with now the voodoo crap? What the fuck? Like, these guys are so racist, they're coming up with shit that's like from the 1600s. This is my opinion. Do your own research. This is for educational purposes only. So again, more dehumanization. And more just making people, especially vulnerable communities, the Haitians, came here from fleeing violence and also destruction of their own country back home, and they came here, and now they're successful community members. Look at what happened with that community where they were targeted for. It was a Springfield, I think it was Springfield, or somewhere in Illinois. The Haitians left in fear of ICE and the MAGA terrorism, and now that community is devastated. They've lost tax revenue. They've lost sales of local businesses. They've lost entire local businesses that the Haitians were running and or working for, and they've gone under. Again, this is for educational purposes only. Do your own research. This is so fucking dumb. This is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. Do your own research. Fucking fascist filter. And then we want to talk about Harley Dirk being like so free speech, right? Well, that's bullshit. Because Kevin M. Cruz sent a blue sky tweet saying, I know Charlie Kirk valued debate and free speech because he blocked me for fact-checking his lies on Twitter and then put me on his organization's professor watch list for writing a book he didn't like. Again, having a professor watch list is not exactly someone who's a man of the cloth, you know? That's not really saint-like behavior. Oops, I just lost my place. Where was I? Kirk, okay, now we get into some real stuff that lines him right up with his Nazi pedophile shit. Dirk said that Jewish people control not just the colleges, it's the nonprofits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it. Kirk also said the number one funding mechanism of radical, open-border, neoliberal, quasi-Marxist policies, culture institutions, and nonprofits is Jewish donors. Holy fucking word salad. Jesus Christ. If you were to have a burger with like every fucking talking point and buzzword, that burger would be stacked from the floor to the ceiling with that crap. Neoliberal, quasi-Marxist policies? What the fuck does that even mean? Semi-Marxist? Yeah, let's have you... We've seen this. Once he gets debated by people who are actually, you know, well-knowledged, he never can actually fully get behind this shit. Anyways, is Jewish donors. Claims that wealthy Jewish people and donors control major institutions in Hollywood are common anti-Semitic tropes. Okay, well, they get to that, and they are. This is the exact kind of crap the Nazis threw out there. They said that the Jews were behind all the wealth and success in Germany, and they weren't sharing it with other people, and they were running everything, and that's why you, the workers, can't have good stuff. That was their entire argument, which is what Harley Dirk is doing here. So yes, this is dehumanizing, and yes, it is violent. This is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. Do your own research. Charlie Kirk says it doesn't feel right for London and New York City to have Muslim mayors. Again, more dehumanization, more violence. And then, of course, there's multiple pictures of Harley Dirk with terrorist Kyle Rittenhouse. So, yeah, if you're not really wanting violence in the country, maybe you just wouldn't have a picture with that kid. Or, if you pal around with pedophiles and terrorists like Kyle Rittenhouse did, you'd probably want a quick little selfie. You know, something to be remembered by. And then, of course, we get to January 6th. Kirk frequently promoted the false and disproven claims of fraud in the election. On November 5th, Kirk was the leader of a Stop the Steal protest at the Maricopa Tabulation Center in Phoenix. He was considered a big name, social influencer in Rudy Giuliani's communications plan to overturn the 2020 election. January 5th, the day before the January 6th terrorist attack, Kirk wrote on Twitter that Turning Point and Students for Trump were sending more than 80 buses of patriots to D.C. to fight for the president. They ended up sending 7 buses, not 80. Wow, talk about missing your goal. We're going to send 80 buses of patriots! We only got 7, is that okay? Jesus. A spokesman for Turning Point, blah, 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 blah. Lead up to the storming, Kirk said he was getting 500 emails a minute calling for a civil war. So as you can see here, he was heavily involved in the January 6th terrorist attack. And this is no surprise that his violent rhetoric started with all this dehumanization stuff against black folks, Haitians, Jews. And now, what do you know? It comes full circle with the January 6th terrorist attack. Because that is what happens. When you dehumanize, villainize people, and you just flat out fucking lie, then people will be motivated and agitated in a way that they will do terrible, awful shit without any thought to the contrary. And that is exactly what happened with the January 6th MAGA terrorist attack. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. Do your own research. And then again, he wants to claim that he's such a free speech dude. He demanded that Mehdi Hassan, who is a fantastic journalist, by the way. If you don't follow him, please follow him on Twitter. Probably Blue Sky is better, though. He demanded that Mehdi Hassan be deported and stripped of citizenship because he didn't like a monologue on COVID that he did while he was on MSNBC. So, again, free speech is free speech for me, but not for thee. That's how these fascist cowards always, always operate. And he's being lionized by the media. Mehdi Hassan sent this because Axios sent out some stupid mainstream bullshit saying Charlie Kirk, singular leader, blah, 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 was a fierce champion of the right to free expression. Come the fuck on. He was about his right to... His only thing was about the... in favor of the free expression was if you kissed his fucking ring. Just like Drumpf. They don't care about free expression unless you're giving them a compliment. Oh, you're telling me I'm so fantastic? Thank you so much, Putin. Yes, you can have Ukraine. What? You're telling me that the election I lost? No, I didn't lose it. You lost it! That is how these fascists operate. They are not champions of free speech at fucking all. Look at what's happening with big tech here on TikTok, right? I'm being censored. Liberals are being censored on Twitter, of course, are being banned. It's happening on Blue Sky as well, because now that Blue Sky is finally popping off and making a little bit of money, the people in charge of Blue Sky have a shitload more money than they ever thought they would have. So, of course, they turn fascist, because that's what money does to you. Tax the fucking rich. This thread is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. Do your own research. Charlie Kirk, also, being the racist that he was, said it was a huge mistake to pass the Civil Rights Act in '64. He blamed Jewish money for ruining American culture. He said gay people are destructive and endorsed having them put to death. He said the Second Amendment is the worth the cost of some gun deaths. Hey, you know what? Charlie Kirk stood for absolutely nothing except for the Second Amendment. That's the one thing he actually fell for. So here we go, with his violent rhetoric, wanting to have gay people put to death and blaming Jewish money for ruining American culture. This is the guy who was the champion of free speech that we should lionize? Fuck that. His assassination should never have happened, but to say he was a good person, eat shit. Again, this thread is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. Do your own research. And of course, I didn't mention this earlier because I wanted to be on a separate topic, but Charlie Kirk said that a patriot should bail out the Paul Pelosi attacker. So what are we doing here? An act of political violence happened to the Pelosi's, and he's saying that someone should bail out the attacker, right? And this is not some attacker who did a righteous thing, like attack someone in self-defense, or, you know, took initiative to stand in front of a truck sending weapons for a genocide and put his own life at risk. No, this was a terrorist whose stated goal was kidnapping and murder elected officials. And what did Harley Dirk do? He wanted to bail his ass out. This is not a man who was anti-violence. This was a terrorist and a terrorist ringleader who basically reaped what he fucking sowed. Again, these are my opinions. Do your own research. Educational purposes only. We already covered that. And then, of course, he was involved in trying to make up the lies about Walls and the MAGA terrorists that shot the Democrats in Wisconsin. Okay, so here's just kind of a highlight, fucking lowlight more like, of some of the things he stood for. Gay people being stoned to death. Most people are scared when they see a black pilot flying a plane. Taylor Swift should reject feminism and submit to her husband. No one should be allowed to retire. Jesus Christ. Leftists should not be allowed to move to red states. British colonialism was what made the world decent? British colonialism? Bro, try some fucking English food and then get back to me, okay? The guy who assaulted the Pelosi... You would think after all the fucking colonialism the Brits did that they would have been able to, like, learn a few things about cuisine. But, oh, no. Fish and chips is where it's at. Religious freedom should be terminated. Multiple black politicians stole white people's spots. MLK Jr. was an awful person. The Great Replacement Theory is reality. The Great Replacement Theory is a big one because that is the Nazi talking point of throughout history, right? This idea that Jews or Mexicans or Muslims or black people are replacing us white people. Oh, no. Is a definitively Nazi belief that has been peddled throughout history by the Nazis. And the fact that he backs it is an inherently violent thing. The same way that Holocaust deniers are inherently violent. Because what happened during the Holocaust? It was death. It was murder. It was terrorism. So people who back that are not peaceful people. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. Do your own research. He, let's see, said vaccine requirements are medical apartheid. Gun deaths are acceptable in order to have a Second Amendment. Women's natural place is under their husband's control. Again, even if they're raped or abused or any host of other atrocities I can't even think about because I'm a dude. Parents should prevent their daughters from taking birth control. George Floyd, again, same thing. So if a child is raped, they have to take their baby to term. George Floyd had it coming. There it is. George Floyd had it coming. Yeah. And again, this is against the Constitution. George Floyd had a right to a trial. He was innocent until proven guilty. Whatever you think of, his past, he had a right to a trial to be proven guilty. And all these MAGA terrorists are so making up so much bullshit about the January 6th criminals that they were never given a trial. That's horseshit. They got the ultimate white people privilege. They got the fucking mayonnaise justice system is what they got. And they got some amazing counsel, and they had plenty of opportunity, and many of them got off with a slap on the fucking wrist. Civil Rights Act was a huge mistake. Encourage parents to protest mask mandates. Mamdani winning in New York is a travesty because Muslims did 9/11. Again, that's actual incitement to violence. Muslims only come to America to destabilize Western civilization. Palestine doesn't exist, and those who support it are like the KKK. He also was in favor of the genocide in Gaza that's happening right now. Not a peaceful person. Again, this is for educational purposes. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. Covered that. And I don't think it gets said enough how he said that MLK was an awful and not a good person and also was against the Civil Rights Act. Because that is inherently racist. To be against the Civil Rights Act is unbelievably racist. It'd be one thing if you supported the Civil Rights Act and you acknowledged that MLK had his own flaws, like he was a misogynist. But to say that he was an awful person and that the Civil Rights Act shouldn't have been passed, that is just pure fucking racism. It's insane. We already covered that. Black women like Joy Reid, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sheila Jackson Lee, and Michelle Obama used affirmative action because they do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously, so they had to steal a white person's slot. Again, pure racism. Every single time we have seen racism, it comes with violence. It starts with a joke, it comes doubling down on the joke, then it becomes a serious contention, and then it becomes you need to leave or else, and then the or else happens. Charlie Kirk also called for anti-trans violence like in the 50s and 60s. Wow, such a passive person, wasn't he? Covered that. Don't have time for that. Yeah, so that covers all the highlights that I have here. But again, these were not, this was not a peaceful dude. He was not a person who ever was worthy of the spotlight. He was not someone who was ever smart enough to defend his positions. He was a terrorist, he was a pedophile supporter, and he was a Nazi. That's who Charlie Kirk was. And he was a person who, if his own daughter was raped, or if he, as what happens many times in Republican households, raped his own underage daughter, guess what? She would have to be forced to take that child to term. That is his beliefs. Again, this is for educational purposes. These are my opinions. Do your own research. So to say that he was all to wax poetic over him is utter horseshit. At the end of the day, the second thing, and these are not mutually exclusive, is that political violence is horrible and it always spirals out of control. Every single time. The French Revolution is a great example. Because the people who were oppressed, guillotined all the people in charge. And then they became the ones in charge. And guess what? They started doing the oppression too. Same with Cuba, right? You see it there. You see it with the Bolsheviks. Over and over and over, the violence spirals out of control. It's actually kind of amazing what happened in America. That the Brits were so violent and evil to us that we had to respond in kind. And then we created a country that's supposed to be founded on the right of liberty and freedom for all, and you are innocent until proven guilty. So, frankly, that was a right that Charlie Kirk was denied. And this is what happens with these terrorists like him all the time, is that they do all this stuff and they eventually slip up and they commit the acts of violence and crime. And that is when he should have faced his judgment, not from some violent criminal who went out of his way and did an unbelievably evil thing to watch. Again, this is for educational purposes. These are my opinions. Do your own research. Let's see here. Have I missed any comments? There are a lot of comments in here. I don't know how to... Let's see. 16 people. Who's still here? Why can't I see? This is where I get really fucking bad at. This is where my boomer comes out. Some dipshit said, I followed Kirk for years and never decided to hate minorities, gays, or anybody. Yeah, that's definitely what he said in those quotes. Fucking people. Kirk was a racist. You are correct. Okay, I can't keep up. There's too many comments in here. I can't follow. Anyways, thank you, everybody. There's 13 people still in here. Thank you so much. Please make sure you go to my page. You can follow me there. Thank you, everybody, for the likes. I see about 1,000 likes in total here. That's pretty fucking awesome. I think that's the most I've ever gotten. So thank you for this. Please, I do typically live streams every Thursday, and I'm posting videos every week. Every day. So come back again. Thank you. Goodbye. Fuck MAGA. Trump is a pedophile.